Okay, guys, I'm here to review WrestleMania VII as part of my WrestleMania review series. So interesting thing about WrestleMania VII. This was originally scheduled to be at the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum, but Sergeant Slaughter's character at the time was getting so death threats and all this, legit death threats, that there were so many security concerns they had to move it across the street to the Los Angeles Sports Arena. So, WrestleMania VII, March 24th, 1991, from the Los Angeles Memorial Sports Arena, in Los Angeles, California. We open with the Rockers versus Haku and the Barbarian. 3-star match here. This is a very good tag match. It's a 3-star tag match. Rockers win, which gives the Rockers their first WrestleMania win after 3 tries. Now, the WWE was a little bit off because they said that Haku and the Barbarian was the Rockers' biggest match. No, their biggest match at WrestleMania was actually WrestleMania 5 when they fought the Twin Towers. That was the Rockers' biggest opponents in terms of weight in WWE. But like I said, Rockers win, 3 stars. Our next match is the Texas Tornado, Kerry Von Erich versus Dino Bravo. This was Bravo's last WrestleMania and Kerry Von Erich's only WrestleMania. So, Tornado wins with a tornado punch, half a star. So then we get the British Bulldog versus the Warlord. The Bulldog was at WrestleManias 2, 3, 4 prior to this, so this is his 4th WrestleMania appearance. This is Warlord's 2nd WrestleMania appearance. So, and for a match of big men, this isn't that bad. It's a 1-star match. Bulldog wins with a power slam. So, the next match is for the WWE Tag Team Championship. The Hart Foundation versus the Nasty Boys. Actually, very good tag match here. 3 stars. Nasty Boys win when they used a helmet that Jimmy Hart brought with them to knock out Jim Neidhart, and the Nasty Boys win the WWE Tag Team Championships here. In fact, other than Dino Bravo, Jimmy Hart had a very good night this Mania. He had 4 clients on this show, 3 of them, and he had 4 matches in which he was managing somebody in, and he had a win in 3 of those matches. So that's fairly good for a manager at that time to have 3 matches, to have 3 of your people you manage win at WrestleMania. This is back when managers had stables of wrestlers too, and so they had many more opportunities and stuff like that. So the next match is one of the most memorable matches on this show. It's the blindfold match between Jake the Snake Roberts and Rick the Model Martel. Stipulation of this match is very simple. You had a hood on over your face for the entire match. I get where they were coming from because it matched the storyline they were doing with Jake and Martel at the time. The problem is this is one of those matches where I think that they looked at it on paper and thought it was probably better than it was, or a better idea than it ended up being practically. Jake won, but this really, it's a half a star match just for the fact that it is somewhat entertaining, but the idea is really, really stupid. The idea is really, really dumb. This is like if you had 2 blind wrestlers wrestling a match, this is what it would be. So, yeah, that's essentially what this is. That's why this match, this stipulation was kind of dumb. So then we get another memorable time out this WrestleMania. Undertaker versus Jimmy Superfly Snuka. This is a 1-star match. Taker won, and he started his undefeated streak at this WrestleMania that would last until last year. And quite frankly, Undertaker's streak should not have ended. It really shouldn't have last year, but if you were going to end it, give it to somebody like Bray Wyatt, Dean Ambrose, Roman Reigns, or somebody like that. Not Brock Lesnar, who doesn't need anything. who never needed it. But that's a rant for another time. Anyway, Taker won here in a relatively dominating fashion. Snuka got like maybe 4 offensive moves in, so it was pretty much a prolonged squash. I just would have had Taker come in and just squash Snuka in like 30 seconds, but so. Then we get probably the match that this pay-per-view is most known for, and the single most memorable match on this card. The career-ending match between the Macho King Randy Savage and the Ultimate Warrior. This is a 5-star WrestleMania classic. This is Warrior's best match. This is Warrior's greatest match he ever had. Period. No matter all his matches, this is his best one. And in terms of what he managed to get out of Warrior, it's Savage's best match at WrestleMania. Taking nothing away from his match with Steamboat at WrestleMania 3, which is my all-time favorite, he didn't have to work hard to get a good match out of Steamboat. He had to work to get a good match out of Warrior, and he did that. When you look at everything that Savage got out of the Warrior, it shows you how underrated the talent Randy Savage is. To take a guy very limited in the ring like the Ultimate Warrior and actually get a very good match out of him here. In fact, this match told such an amazing story. Each guy, when people were Warrior and Savage, where they each kicked out of each other's finishing moves, or wondering if they still had it. Warrior at one time talked to his hands. He looked up and talked to, I guess, his gods and his character, asking if it was his time when Savage kicked out of the Girl Press Splash. That's how you tell a story. That's how wrestling matches work. Yes, they can have good in-ring action. They can have good in-ring work. But the story has to be told great. And the writers at this time knew how to tell a story. They don't now, so I don't care who you got. If the storyline is there, but the writers fail to tell it in the match, or the wrestlers fail to tell it in the match, ultimately the storyline won't get told. And I think that's where a lot of us today in the YWC, or just the internet fans in general, seem to forget that sometimes it's not about just the ring action that makes a match. It's the story, and this match tells an amazing story, and that's why it's a 5-star Mania classic. Not to mention, it's got one of the all-time WrestleMania moments at the end of it with Savage and Elizabeth. If you ask anyone my age who's ever seen WrestleMania VII, they'll probably tell you the single most emotional WrestleMania moment took place right after this match, and that's the whole Savage-Elizabeth thing. That is something that, watching it, you will almost tear up if you're a guy my age, or even know about Randy Savage and Elizabeth or anything like that. That'll draw you into this day. That's how good this moment is. It set up the wedding at SummerSlam 91, which was when Savage and Elizabeth could actually make it official on screen that they were married, because they were off screen for years before they actually did on TV. But that moment and this match, everything about it is why this is a 5-star classic. And on WrestleMania VII. My only gripe would be, I think this match should not have been where it is on the card. I could make an argument that you could have this match main event in a way. Just because of the Savage thing at the end. Because it still would have sent the fans home ultimately happy, in a way. And on top of that, Warrior won it, so they still would have been happy because the face won the match. But Savage also got his moment too with Elizabeth. So I could argue that this match could have main evented, but ultimately I do think it was the right choice to have Hogan and Slaughter main event, but I think this match should have been right before it. I think this match should have been right before it. In fact, I think there's a lot of matches you could take off this card and actually be a better show. There's a lot of matches that could be taken off this show, so to make it a much better show. Anyway, they decided then to put a match that could not follow this match after this, and that's Demolition versus Tenryu and Katawo. And Katawo, or whatever his name is. It's a 1-star tag match, and the Japanese guys win the match. So, like I said, it's a 1-star match. It's nothing special, but it's a 1-star match. And it's Demolition's worst match at WrestleMania, in a way, but that's because this was Crush and, Smash and Crush, and not Action Smash. So, then we have the WWE Intercontinental Championship match, Mr. Perfect versus the Big Boss Man. This is a 1.5 star match. Ultimately, I think Boss Man should have won, in a way, because the whole story going into this was for Boss Man to even get a crack at Mr. Perfect, he had to go through every member of the Heenan family, which he had done. A story like that, if it was done today, would be leading up to a title change. And now, granted, I know that what you got at SummerSlam was the match of the year of 1991, if I'm not mistaken. Bret Hart and Mr. Perfect at SummerSlam 91. I believe PWI named that the match of the year in 1991, and rightfully so. It's one of the top SummerSlam matches in the history of SummerSlam, and it's one of the great IC title matches of all time. But when I get to my SummerSlam review, I'll talk about that. But you could have Boss Man winning and Perfect winning the title right back to drop it to Bret Hart, and I just think that was... You know, you could also give this a little bit of props for being... This is Andre the Giant's final appearance at WrestleMania right here. And he didn't wrestle. He just walked out to help Boss Man in a way. But it's 1.5 stars. It's not a bad match, but it certainly isn't anything special. So our next match is Earthquake versus Greg the Hammer Valentine. This is a 1/2 star match. Earthquake won. The 1/2 star is for a little bit of psychology with Valentine working over the leg to set up for the figure 4 leg lock. That's about it, though. So the next match is the Legion of Doom versus Power and Glory. I would argue that even though it was Smash and Crush and not Action Smash, this match probably should have been the Legion of Doom versus Demolition, just because that name alone probably would have sold that, just the two names. The original Road Warriors versus the WWE's version of the Road Warriors that was a ripoff. Now, granted, I do think there would have been more money if it was Legion of Doom versus Action Smash Demolition, but I think the name recognition alone of Legion of Doom versus Demolition would have made money. But anyway, Legion of Doom squashed Power and Glory here in about, I believe it is 45 seconds. And then at SummerSlam, they would go on to win the tag titles. I would have said they should have won the tag titles here and beat the Hearts, because we never got a match between Legion of Doom and the Hart Foundation. So then we get another match that this card is known for. A match that, if you really look at it, had over 3 years of build. Going all the way back to when DiBiase came into the company in 1987, this match with Virgil had been built up for nearly 3 years. And at the 1991 Royal Rumble, when Virgil turned on DiBiase, the pop Virgil got was the biggest pop Virgil ever got in his entire career anywhere. So, Virgil was Roddy Piper in his corner. He beats DiBiase by countout. The feud would go into SummerSlam, and that's for another thing. As far as the match, it's a 1-star match. So, next is a match I really think this card did not need, ultimately. The Mountie versus Tito Santana. This is a no-star match. Mountie wins with his little shock stick, and that's it. I would definitely, take this match off, take Earthquake's match off, take the Demolition match off, and keep the rest of them, and I think you have a much better show. Because ultimately, those are the 3 matches I think that bring this show down in a way. Now, it would not have been a perfect show by any stretch of imagination, even with those matches gone, but it would certainly help it not to have those there. Because again, there's 14 matches on this card, which is too many matches. As somebody that also say take off Tornado and Bravo, but I understand why that's there. So, but then ultimately it's the main event, the WWF Championship match. Sergeant Slaughter defending against Hulk Hogan. This is actually a 3-star match. It's not Hogan's best WrestleMania match. I maintain that is the match against The Rock at WrestleMania 18. And a match that should have main evented, but I'll get to that with the WrestleMania 18 review. Hogan wins here, and that was the right call. They had to get the title off of Slaughter, because they would have kept the title on Slaughter for too much longer. bad things could have happened, because as I said at the top of this video, he was legitimately getting death threats because of the whole turn he did and being aligned to Saddam Hussein at the time that the first Gulf War was just starting. I really think that overwhelming storyline is really bad ultimately for WWE as a whole, because I don't ever think you should bring that kind of stuff into pro wrestling storylines. And Sergeant Slaughter was a heel before. You know, you could have made him heel without being the Iraqi turncoat sympathizer guy. Because he was a heel at its earlier part in his career, and it had nothing to do with being anything about Iraqis. But overall, this is, you know, its star rating is 21 out of 70. But like I said, if you take at least 3 or 4 matches off this card, the match rating would be a little bit higher. Keep this in mind, though. This match has, this pay-per-view has 3 3-star matches on it and a 5-star match. If you had a pay-per-view like this today, that would be considered a very, very successful show in a lot of our eyes, to have a pay-per-view that had 3 3-star matches and a 5-star match on it. Think about that. Given the spot it is, this will obviously be an F show, but that's half because there's too many matches on here. That's half because there's too many matches on here. If you took out at least 3 matches, you'd have at least a C show here. So, next is WrestleMania 8. That'll be watched on WWE Network. This will be in the WrestleMania Review Series playlist. If you like the video, hit the like button down there, hit the subscribe button down there, and thank you for watching. Bye.